not like any other podcast, coming to you straight from the heartland where investing is told like it is. It's time for Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. Hold on, because here comes the next episode of the Paranoid Banker Podcast.
Well, hey everybody, Darin Garman here, and welcome to this week's Paranoid Banker Podcast. I'm glad to have you aboard and have you with me today. As I'm looking out the window here at the home office when I'm recording this podcast, wow, rainy, wet, cold, not a very nice day, but a great day for me to spend time with you, not only sharing information, but also spending some quality time talking about what's important to us, which is our investments. And not only the growth of our investments, but the protection of our investments and our money as well. So thanks for joining me today, or whenever you are joining me. I appreciate it. So what I want to talk about are trends for 2019 that I think you need to be on the lookout for. And usually my format for trends is, about every year, this time of year, I will look at the calendar, kind of scratch my head and say, wow, time has gone by fast. We're less than 30 days from another year. And then I want to make sure that I sit down and take the time to map out some of the trends that I have started to see, not only this year, but as some of those trends, and if I think some of those trends will grow and become important things for us as investors to realize and know about in 2019. And so usually the format's been, I'll hit you with, maybe 3, 4, 5 trends you need to take a look at or keep a lookout for or consider, in terms of your, your money, your net worth, growing your money or protecting your money, and talk about those. And sometimes that's a 2-hour podcast. And so what I thought we would do this year, as compared to years past, is we're going to break some of these trends down into each of their own individual podcasts. So we're going to have 3, probably 4 podcasts, counting this one, where I will be delving into those trends and maybe spending a little bit more time on them in some detail so we can get a little bit more out of each of the trends versus having one long podcast and we only get maybe little pieces, bits and pieces of each of them. I just thought this would be more effective and more informative. And so we're going to start with that today. And the thing to realize also before I start jumping into trend number 1 that I want to talk about is they're not in any kind of order. So there's no priority here. These are all trends that I see doing what I do on a day-to-day basis and being involved with the people I'm involved in on a day-to-day basis. These are what I'm seeing. And I want you to really get kind of a glimpse on what I'm seeing so you can make some decisions, or at least have the information to possibly make some decisions that could help you as well. So there's no priority here. It's just based on probably the top 4 or 5 trends that I'm seeing that you need to know about and that I'm considering and really paying attention to protect what I have for me, and also what I recommend for my investment partners as well. All right, so let's jump into the first one. And the first one has to do with you personally, by the way. And it's kind of interesting. For us to even have this conversation 20 years ago would have been outrageous. You would have thought I was crazy if I would bring this topic up 20 years ago. And you would have paid no attention to me and written me off as some crazy man that has obviously not gotten enough sleep or something, because we wouldn't even have this discussion. But we're having this discussion today. And it has to do with protection and protecting you in terms of your money and your information. Okay? So the days of the thief or the criminal walking into bank or convenience store with mask on and handgun in place and stealing money from the cash drawers or cash registers and running out are pretty much gone. Now, don't get me wrong, it happens. There's robberies, I get that, and I get it. But now criminals don't have to do that. They can sit behind computers and steal money and steal information. Now, they don't steal information for fun. They steal information for money. So just because I'm saying steal information, don't take that lightly, because that information that they're stealing and then selling somehow or using turns into money. And at the end of the day, that's theft from you. Many of you on this podcast have been victims of theft. Whether it's your information or whether it's financially, you've had money stolen from you with the use of technology somehow. Most of you have. And if you haven't, don't worry, you will. It's only a matter of time. Because really, the bad guys are winning this battle. So I'm reading again today about another company that has had hundreds of millions of people's personal data stolen from them. You can't go a week without reading about some company that's had some kind of theft of information or money, or sometimes both. So this morning I'm reading about Marriott. So Marriott had hundreds of millions of customers' information stolen. I don't know about you. I'm in that group. Many of you are in that group. So now our information's out there running around waiting to be used to do what? Steal money. And in some cases, steal money from us. And so the bad guys, as I said, are winning this battle. So think about this. Do you think that a company as large and as dynamic as Marriott, do you think that they just don't pay attention to their cybersecurity? Or do you think they spend tens of millions of dollars and have hundreds, if not thousands, of employees hired just so this won't happen? I would say the latter. Of course, they're spending a ton of money and a ton of employee time and a ton of labor making sure this stuff doesn't happen, but it happens. Why? Because the bad guys are better at this than the good guys. And so if you've heard the term dark web, this is where a lot of these folks operate and exist. And by the way, it's not a conspiracy. I talk to people. No, that's just a conspiracy, Darin. There is such a thing as a dark web, and it's existed for years, by the way, so it's not anything new. Many people are just hearing about it. And it's dark web because that's where a lot of the criminals do their business, in the dark. And so that is the case, and that is what is happening, ongoing. The bad guys are winning. And so if you have any kind of information or investments that are hooked up to a computer somewhere, you're going to have it stolen. Now, you may be saying, okay, Darin, you're being just a little over dramatic. Come on. I mean, really? It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Whether your information is stolen or money is stolen from one of your accounts somehow, and of course you always discover that too late, it's going to be stolen. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And again, for many of us, it's already happening. It probably could happen again. And that's just the way it is. So what am I talking about in terms of a trend, Darin? I mean, this is some information. I'm already kind of aware of this. What you're saying isn't really any new information. This is nothing new. So how is this a trend? So let's come full circle and talk about how you're going to be affected by this personally and some things you can consider doing. There will be a growing trend from investors personally, companies and corporations, to find places to park money and information on behalf of themselves, on behalf of their investors. And one place that that's going to take place is going to be investment real estate. So think of it this way. If we own a 72-unit apartment property, how are people going to steal our information? How are people going to steal money from us that's already invested in a hard asset like an apartment community? It's not going to happen. The guy or the gal, the criminal, sitting behind their computer trying to hack into our 72-unit property, they can do that all day long. They're never going to get in because there's nothing to get into because it's a hard asset, right? And it's also a hard asset that produces income and return on investment. And so you're going to see, for protection purposes and security purposes, more and more investors, more and more companies, more and more corporations, and more popularity of multifamily communities, self-storage facilities, investment properties that produce income being used as storage facilities for investors' money. In other words, it's a place to park their money that gives them the security that they're looking for. Why? Because you can't hack into an apartment community. You can't hack into a storage facility. You can't. I mean, go ahead and try. Right? And here's the interesting thing. I didn't say anything about more and more investors buying apartments because of rate of return, income, tax savings, tax deferral. I didn't say any of that. I said because of security, because of a place that you can't hack into. And you will see a trend. And by the way, I wouldn't doubt if there will be companies that form, and maybe they've already started forming, where that's what they're in the business to do, right? So ABC Storage Company, store your money with us. It's protected from hacking. It's protected from cyber theft. And what we do with is we park your money in our 36-unit apartment property. So not only is your money parked here, it's safe and secure from any kind of cyber theft. And oh, by the way, you get a return on it too. Right? I can see that happening. But for our purposes, for this podcast, the trend you want to keep an eye on is the trend of movement of money for non-hacking safety and security reasons to apartment communities and other investment real estate properties that produce income. Now, this might not be the main reason for most of the movement, but it will be in the top 3 reasons, if not the top reason for some. Interesting, huh? Would we be having this conversation 20 years ago? No, we wouldn't be. We wouldn't be. But we are now. So the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to sit on the sidelines and hope nothing happens with your information, your savings account, money market account, checking accounts, retirement account sitting somewhere? Or are you going to be proactive and do something about it? At least have another layer of protection just in case. There are no right or wrong answers, but we have to have this conversation now because this is where we're at as a society from a technological advancement standpoint. Because now we're talking about protection of your money and your assets. So what are you going to do about it? At the very least, I would say you really need to be given some thought to, whether it's looking at your financial statement, doing some kind of an assessment, and look and see where you're vulnerable. Where are you vulnerable? And what do you have set up to help protect against that vulnerability? Because the bad guys are continuing to win this battle, and they're not going to stop. someone's not going to create some magic pill that's going to stop all this. It's going to get worse. And as it gets worse, the chances that you could have your hard-earned money stolen from you is just not acceptable. And so at least take an assessment. Look at your financial picture. Get out your financial statement. See where you have some vulnerability so you at least know, and make some decisions on what you're going to do about it, if anything. Because it at least begs the question of what should you be thinking of doing, where should you be positioning some of your money when we have this kind of problem and issue that's only going to get worse, and it will be more of a trend in 2019 than probably what I'm saying. We'll see, of course. We'll have this conversation this time next year, and then we'll really know. But that is one trend you really need to be looking for, thinking about, and possibly making some decisions on your own wealth situation to deal with that. All right. So thank you again for joining me on this week's Paranoid Banker podcast. It's been great having you. I appreciate you and you being involved with me. And as always, I'm open to your comments and your questions. I look forward to dialogue about the podcasts. So you've got all my contact information. Feel free to contact me and be happy to have some dialogue with you about this week's Paranoid Banker podcast. All right, have a great day. Have a great rest of your week or weekend whenever you're listening, and we will talk to you later. All right, see ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker podcast. For investment questions, comments, or to get in touch with Darin, go to www.garmanblog.com. Thanks for joining Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker podcast. For investment questions, comments, or to get in touch with Darin, go to www.garmanblog.com.